broadcasting around the world. This is the Hard Asset Money Show. Your wealth, your money, your future. Serious talk about what's happening and how you profit. Hosted by Christian Briggs. Follow him on X at BMC_HAM. Live in 3, 2, 1.
Well, today's show is a show that we've been putting together for about a week now. And I think part of what the show is going to be really talking to exactly who is this young man who's coming into politics in New York City, which could expand to the entire state, certainly could expand to the country. His popularity is quite high. Zohran Mamdani, and he has now secured the primary for the Democratic candidate for New York mayor, as many of you know. What we're going to do today is look at who he is and what his policies are and how would that affect the financial markets. How would that affect equities, stocks, the bonds, the real estate market, or even the hard asset market. We're hitting milestones now on our YouTube channel, the Hard Asset Money Show YouTube channel, and we have over 14,000 subscribers, and we're growing at about 300 to 400 a week. So I appreciate the show's growth. It's been amazing, and we're starting to get a lot of big questions. How can somebody of this nature come from something out of nothing and be one of the most popular socialist, communist, I'm not sure what the definition is. We're going to actually talk about it on the show today. But how would this young man, if he is elected mayor, affect us, everybody? Because New York is a very powerful place. It's one of the epicenters of the financial markets worldwide. We know that to be fact. So it's a big responsibility and a lot of authority as the mayor of New York would have. So today we're going to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, all of it. What would happen. And then we're also going to do a follow-up on that big, beautiful bill. We're getting through the Senate. Senator Thom Tillis has announced he will not be seeking re-election. I know Tom. He's a good guy. We're going to find out exactly why on today's show. So, be back in about 60 seconds.
This podcast is brought to you by Hard Asset Management. We have the guaranteed lowest prices on all precious metals and rare coins. Call us at 844-426-4653. That's 844-426-4653.
All right, welcome back. Today's show is two parts. First part, which is very important, I'm getting a lot of calls. Thank you so much for everybody out there. We're now well over 14,000 subscribers on YouTube. We appreciate that. Our goal is to get to 100,000 within the next 6 to 12 months, and I think we're going to get there. For everybody who emails, texts, and calls, thanking all of us here who put the show together, and Lewis, who produces it, Patrick and Josh, who do the great editing. We really appreciate the growth. A year ago, we were at about 1,000 subscribers, and now we're doing quite well. But let's talk about this young man, Zohran Mamdani. He's a 33-year-old young man, was not born in this country, but came here as a young child. The question is, does the policies, it doesn't matter the age or where you come from, ideology knows no discrimination and it knows no barriers on demographics, certainly not in today's world. So let's talk about the ideology about this young man. Who is he? Who is this young man who rises so quickly in the political arena? And I mean, it was quick. Wow. Well, let's talk about it. Let's see who he is, and let's see a little bit about what the policies how they could affect us, how they could go from New York across the country. If then across the country, across the world. Is this the beginning of something that could spread quickly? Is it something that could be embraced? Well, first of all, he came out of nowhere. He was a young kid when he came here, was not born in the country, obviously. He's a naturalized U.S. citizen, apparently, is what we're finding out. I don't know him, never met him. I've heard him. A lot of people I've been talking to before we put this show together have been at some of his rallies and heard what he has to say. I've done some homework. We've researched it pretty deep about some of the policies. But right now, what's clear is when you look at what's happening in New York, New Jersey, Minnesota, Tennessee, California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, Michigan, Texas, especially in Dallas and Houston. These are states getting heavily influenced by massive migration as well as organic population increasing through families and childbearing the numbers are off the charts what the Muslim community is doing in the United States. We're not here to talk about the religion. We're trying to be very specific on one individual who happens to be of the Islam religion and a socialist. But the influence going across the United States is unbelievable. The growth of the religion is nothing short of unprecedented, especially on a global basis. Domestic, I mean, it's fast outpacing anything that's ever been seen here. You have three primary reasons why. You have immigration. Obviously, Obama brought in about 800,000, close to 1 million Somalians and resettled them in Minnesota, and they were all Muslims, and that's where obviously some members of Congress have been able to secure their districts and seats and were elected to federal levels. And of course, state level, the former Attorney General of Minnesota was a Muslim. So we're seeing this incredible growth in the religion globally, domestically, through immigration, also for indoctrination. The Muslim religion is heavily being indoctrinated in low-income, impoverished areas, the urbans, the prisons, and things like that, and then it flourishes outside. And then the third thing is just natural growth. Right now, if you look at the three main demographics of the United States, the white families, we'll call them that Caucasian, more white, has about 1.7, 1.8 children per family. The Latinos, the Browns, are about 2.1. But in the Muslim families, it's closer to about 8 to 9 children per family. So there's going to be some huge growth on that to be expected when you're having those kind of numbers. And it continues to this day. So with all of that said, if this young man who has a very hard left perspective on government and how the government needs to run many things, and not just in oversight, but rather in a direct, influential way or a direct participation. For example, one of the things that he has made very clear that all production, okay, we're going to go from a high level to a low level. So the macro view, which is government oversight, to the micro view, which is privatization or private enterprise. His view is macro, where all government should be either owning directly or certainly controlling production of everything. That would mean all the banks, grocery stores, insurance companies, or bakeries within that city, state, or certainly within the private markets. The businesses that would produce anything would be either direct ownership of government or certainly heavily influence, oversight, and minority participation in ownership. His philosophy is that government and the people that would be elected or appointed, sometimes you don't get the opportunity to elect the people overseeing and have authoritative power over you. Look at Europe. The European Union is a non-elected body who actually has more authority than the elected people. The elected people were elected by the constituents of the people of the countries. Now that their elected officials don't have the authority, the elections are basically, they're fraud. They're nothing. So non-elected officials control the elected officials. So the people that actually want to have the say and who they want to elect based on the ideology of the majority, that's zero, has zero value. So there's Europe. That already shows that model can work, supposedly, will work, supposedly, but they definitively are making it work to the best of their ability. Even if communism didn't work and has never worked, socialism has never worked, well, they're going to do it again because it's different this time. So let's go back to this young man and the fact that he's now looking at becoming the mayor of one of the most powerful cities, financial centers in the world. Budget is about 115 to 120 billion per year for a city. I mean, that's bigger than some of the countries down south. His philosophy is to come in and to bring equality to people that have never had it before. In other words, if you're in America and you don't have $1 billion in the bank, it's because you were never given the opportunity or you were never allowed to flourish in such a way. You must be a victim. You must be suppressed. I guess anybody who's gone from the bottom to the top is because they weren't suppressed. I think everybody is given 100% equal opportunity. Suppression can only come from a mindset. It's the willingness to allow someone else to control you. If that's what they want to do, well, then I guess you can't really help them. There's always going to be followers. Majority of people are followers, but there's a difference between following good, truthful things, biblical things, to suppression, which is forcing the policies or whatever it may be of the day. A lot of people have looked at him and have come to some conclusions based on his own words, where he kind of fits within the ecosystem, both politically, socially, and how his views might be a real detriment to the overall philosophy of the American capitalistic way of making our lives better or working hard for something. First of all, he's anti-Western. Make no mistake about it. Western values, he has no place for those. He's not a big fan of the Jews. He's not a big fan of the Christians. Muslims in general, if you look at any of their religious teachings, have a very detrimental policies. Once those are enacted, look at London, look at Paris. That Sharia law thing is not good. He is a believer in Sharia law. He does believe that Islam is the only true religion. That type of philosophy affects everything. He wants to have no independent grocery store. The food supplies, he says. City-owned grocery stores only. Fare-free buses. He wants to expand and protect various things that a lot of states are pushing back on. That's for little children to be able to switch their sexes at a very young age, even before they can understand anything, their character, their makeup. I mean, what they like and don't like. They're just children. So he's very pro gender-affirming care for the youngest of people. And that is at odds with Islam, but that's the point, is that Islam is a means to an end of destruction for the West. As he even said in his ideology, what he wants is to bring production of everything under government control. So that's whether it's personal or social, all the way down to business. And that's a problem. When you look at exactly who he would be most aligned with, the majority of the people he's going to be aligned with are going to be hardcore socialists, where high taxes become the greater means of how the government would run by. Instead of having low taxes, low regulatory environment, increasing the ability for GDP growth, he's going to stifle it hard. And what his goal would be then is to make as many people, and this is how this works, socialism and communism is very, very similar. It really is the same thing. One's just a little bit less. Socialism gives at least a little bit of relief from 100% tax, but not by much, because by the time you do everything, it's pretty much there. Communism is the absolute absence of any material wealth accumulation or any ability to create wealth or to have anything to show for the fruits of your labor. So it's a hair. You're splitting a hair between the two. The way we're looking at this is his policies. He's at one side of the spectrum. He's saying, this is what we're going to do, how we're going to bring prosperity to millions of people that have never had it before. And so when you think about those policies, they don't work. Now, yes, they can last for a while. And a lot of people say, oh, but it gives people a chance. At the end of the day, those policies would not allow the way we've been successful, where people who have nothing can create something and maintain that into their retirement. What he's talking about would bring such devastation, not necessarily to the people who have now, but to the people who would work so hard for the ability to have something to show for their efforts for 30 or 40 years worth of hard work, because those policies would restrict the accumulation, because the taxes would be so severe, and those taxes would raise the cost of everything. Look at California. Legislators have raised taxes so high by saying we need the taxes, and they're only going to tax the top 1%. Okay? True. That's true. Because about 1% of California pay 99% of the state income tax. And then I think it's 10% pay the rest of lots of different taxes. It's ridiculous. To the point where there's no middle class. Those taxes and the cost thereof are associated with anything that a business owner has. He just trickles it down to the consumer. And a lot of those products are just everyday things. This young man in New York's politics, whether it's the socialists and communists in Congress or in state or local government, have now embraced him. I mean, his popularity is off the charts, certainly within the Democratic Party. Of course, anybody knows that when you tax at 70 or 80%, and then you have your cost of living, I'm not so sure, unless you're making tens of millions of dollars a year, you're going to have a whole lot left over to be able to put away for the rainy days that do come. So what we're looking at right now is, if he's elected mayor, the influence will grow quickly. And since the U.S. is growing at an unprecedented rate in the Muslim religion, which is really a culture, it's almost a society, it's a way of life. It's not a race of people by any means, because it's a religion, and anybody can join this. But it has such influence in the U.S. Take Texas. And many of you all know, in Dallas, North Dallas, in Plano, Frisco, and even in Houston, the mosques that are being built are unprecedented. They're being done everywhere. Thousands and thousands of these will be built over the next 3 to 5 years. Whether it's a mosque or a prayer center, which is different, but it's similar, but does the same function, or a welcoming center. The welcoming centers are for the indoctrination, to get people to join the religion. Prayer centers are for them to do their duties. Minnesota now has call to prayer. Minneapolis does. I don't know how many times per day, but it's a bunch. I know New Jersey's doing it. I know parts of New York are doing it. I know there are small communities all over the United States that are allowing this to happen under the protection of freedom of religion. But when you look at it, it's not a religion. It's a political party of submission. And if you don't submit, like Bill Maher once said, it's the only religion he knows of in the world that if you don't adopt it, accept it, they just kill you. It's crazy. But that's how it works over there. As he kind of transforms the messaging for democratic socialist to being something that sounds prosperity-wise or prosperity-based, his following will continue to grow. As that position of power grows in authoritative ways, it's going to solidify and connect the dots of all the other communities in America that are believing the same ideology. It doesn't have to be just Muslims. I'm talking about just the socialist communist movement. It just happens he's of a religion that does and is a believer in, we're talking about anti-Jews, anti-Christians, anti-anything, especially women. They're not fond of women's rights. That's a fact. If you've ever been in the Middle East, you would know that. So what we're saying today is this young man, we're not here to say good, bad, or indifferent. We're just pointing out the facts. His ideology is a hard pill to swallow for some people, that it could be so detrimental. Any government, whether he's elected mayor, governor, who knows where his aspirations are, it's a disaster. It's a recipe for disaster. Socialism and communism, no matter how you package it, doesn't lead to prosperity for the 99%. Now, if you're in the party and you run the show in the Soviet Union, man, you had a great life. I mean, it was the bomb. If you were part of the Communist Party of any of those Eastern European countries back in the day, the Soviet Union obviously was the biggest controller of the independent countries, like the mothership. You lived great. So there is upside. If everybody listening can become a member of the party and be a member of what they call the cabinet, like in China, the CCP, you're doing great. But if you're not part of that 1%, but you're part of the 99%, it ain't so good. It's never going to be good. It's been proven that it doesn't work, but it's a great platform to run on because people want to embrace things that are easy. Like, oh, I will have free health care. I'll have free child care. I'm not even going to have to pay for high prices at the grocery store because the government's going to limit the price they can charge. Oh, look, the gas stations are all owned by the government. Oh, look, the insurance companies, the healthcare, the hospitals. If you look at where things are going, more and more of what I'm saying is happening. The question is, how fast? Well, think of it as a hockey stick. In the last year or 2 years, the growth of this ideology has hockey sticked. And I mean a straight up number with everybody from that 35, 36 years old and younger, especially, they're embracing it. Digital transactions, no cash, no checks. There's your first problem. Healthcare, many of them now expect free healthcare. They even mandate it in a lot of different local municipalities because why there's so much pressure for young people to get more healthcare, they don't want to pay for it. In fact, in this generation, the young generation now, we have more of them living at home, but yet expecting more and more free things. They're getting sold on the ideology that free is obtainable for everything. Yes, it is government free, but the government doesn't get the money. They tax the money from who? The very people that are complaining that taxes are too high and they should be giving free stuff. Well, if you want free stuff, your taxes are going to go up so you can get your free stuff. That's how it works. They don't understand that. We're looking at what I think is going to be a huge mistake if this young man is elected mayor because his ideology, his way of thinking does not benefit the majority of people, but rather a very small, minute amount of class of people, but not the masses. So that's the ideology. There is a problem with the way he's being embraced because everybody on that far left thinks this is the next guy that can take the democratic, socialist, communist agenda to the next level. And they're probably not wrong. Certainly starting that way. Okay, I'm going to be right back. We're going to be going over that big, beautiful bill that's starting to get, well, what's going on with all that and why are people not voting for it and voting for it? What are the pros and cons? We're going to do a quick little version on that. We did a show a couple weeks ago on it. that the numbers on our show blew up. So obviously it's a popular topic, and I'm getting a lot of calls and emails, so I'm going to do it.
The Hard Asset Money Show will be right back after a word from our sponsor. Gold has nearly doubled in just 5 years, rising from $1,700 an ounce in 2020 to over $3,300 today. That's a 95% gain, outperforming the market and proving why gold is the ultimate long-term hedge. As global debt soars and currencies weaken, central banks are hoarding gold at record pace. Why aren't you? At Hard Asset Management, we offer award-winning service and fast, secure delivery. Call 844-426-4653 or visit bmcham.com. Protect your future with real assets. Own gold now. According to PCGS Price Guide, an 1849 $20 grade proof 64 plus was valued at $20 million in November 2021, and today it is worth $25 million, a rise of $5 million in less than 4 years. On April 2024, a 1921 $20 satin strike grade SP58 was valued at $750,000 according to PCGS Price Guide. Today, it is valued at $2.2 million, rising $1,450,000 in that span. Follow on X at BMC_HAM for all news and the latest developments.
All right, welcome back, everybody. So, we just talked about a little bit on the mayor candidate who took the Democratic primary by storm. The young man, for a lot of people, they're calling him the new, I don't want to say the new face of the Democratic Party, but kind of is. I mean, I don't know how you separate socialism and communists from Democrats. It's kind of one and the same. I heard someone say the other day, Democratic Party has become the party of communists, socialists, and atheists. Not true, because there are some that are Muslim, there are some that are Christian, there are some that are Jews. So it's really not about the religion as much. It's really about whether we get taxed at 80% or we're just taxed at 100%. That's what it comes right down to. And the gentleman that's running, Zohran Mamdani, who's running for mayor of New York under the Democratic primary, he's all in on the high level of socialism and high taxes, over regulatory environment, own all the businesses, government controls everything. So I don't know how that's going to pan out, but we're going to know in a few months here when the election comes. But let's go right back to what's going on with the big, beautiful bill. The Senate is convening right now on a multiple hour, I think it was 16 or whatever hours that they had to read the entire bill that the Democrats had demanded. They got it done, so they're working on it today and tomorrow to get this thing passed through the Senate. The question is why is so many Republicans voting against the bill in the Senate? A number of Republican senators have come very clearly, I want to say come to the front. I mean, they've come to the lead of the pack saying they don't like this bill. It's not what it was. Not the bill what was supposedly going to be brought to them. They don't like the spending. They don't like the certain cuts. The bottom line is, will the bill help the country? Let's break it down. We're going to do a bigger version of this on the bill here tomorrow. And I'm going to break down the good, the bad, and the ugly in this thing. The way it looks, it will add to the deficit spending and the debt ultimately. It does have the tax cuts, which are very important. Right now, we need those more than ever, especially if we were going into an inflationary recession, which is very likely. It looks like we're going to have inflation with either a slowdown to zero GDP or possibly a contraction, which could be consistent in the months or quarters to come. So at the end of the day, the bill needs to pass in the sense that the tax cuts will help tremendously the middle class. It'll help a lot of people. Does the bill give the president enough maneuvering time-wise to be able to increase the debt, increase spending, but get the GDP back up next year to where the GDP expands the manufacturing, the tariffs, and all the things he's working on to increase GDP growth faster than the growth of the debt? By that method, they could then use the excess revenues from the GDP growth to pay down the debt, cut the deficit spending, and thus get some type of a handle on where we're at. Instead of spending $2.5 trillion in fiscal 26 deficit over our revenues, we might be able to spend 1.5. So we're slowing the growth of the debt. Once we get to it where our revenues and our spending are equal, then we start looking at more tightening some of the spending policy on things we don't need and redirecting that money toward paying down debt. That's the goal. Until this bill goes through, there's a lot of good and bad in there. I mean, I got to say, I'm not agreeing with everything, but overall, it has a tremendous amount of money for illegal and legal immigration. It's got the tax cuts, which are very important. It does have some slowing of growth in the entitlement programs. It's not cutting into the programs, but it does slow the growth of the programs. People got to understand the difference. If it's $1 million a year, but it grows at 5%, what this bill is trying to say is we're not going to cut the $1 million. So it's not even the fact that it's going to cut $1 million out of, let's say, Medicare. If Medicare was $1 million a year, they're not cutting the $1 million. If it's growing, or the entitlement program is growing in a fiscal 5%, let's say, per year, then they want to maybe just cap it at 4%. Instead of having to increase at 5 or 4, whatever the number is, they wanted to slow a little bit the growth so they could get a better handle on where exactly the numbers need to be to maintain the consistency of the programs and cover the people it was intended to cover. That's all they're saying. They think there's a little bit too much waste in the current growth model. Maybe there is, so we cut back a point or two. If they were wrong, they can always increase it back again or supplement, but you got to know where it is defined. So all they're trying to say is we're just going to cut the slowdown of the growth. So that's really a very important part, and that's entitlement programs. So the bill does bring more benefit to the country if the method of which they're trying to outpace the debt and the deficit spending through growth in manufacturing revenues by increasing manufacturing jobs here, which is massive. Those things are the best jobs there are. That grows middle class, man, like that. And it grows it at a higher pay. It's almost like the lower to the middle class become the upper middle class with high-paying manufacturing jobs. And that's what Trump's trying to do. He's like, look, I'll get the jobs. Get me the bill. Let me have some maneuvering power. Give me a little bit of cash to work with. We're going to have to increase the debt a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's no different than a business asking for an SBA loan, Small Business Administration loan. Why? Because I know if I invest this money into the expansion of my business, I can expand my revenues, my profitability, pay the loan back, and now we have a sustainable business. It's a very clear message and method of which he's trying to do, he being Trump. And so he's trying to front run more GDP growth, more revenue at the top line, less deficit spending to meet the needs of the country under current fiscal policy, then the debt would increase. So that's what he's trying to do. I always tell people, he's not dumb. He's probably one of the smartest cats in the business world today. Give him the latitude and the leniency. Certainly give him the consideration and time to prove this out, because I think he's right. I think we can do this. But if we can't, at least the tax cuts are hugely beneficial, and there are some other good provisions in there, and if we can't, we can't. I think Trump got handed a bag of rocks that I can't even, I'm going to say this because it makes me so mad. In the last, 30, 60, 90 days after Trump was president-elect, the spending by the Biden administration was off the charts. It's like, okay, we lost the election, so let's reward us with golden parachutes of the hundreds of billions of dollars. It's mind-boggling. Trillions of dollars was spent, and it can't be found. How do you spend $4 or $5 trillion and not know where it's at? You would have to have the involvement of the highest level of government agencies to wipe the slate clean of where the money came in and where the money went out and to whom. They wiped it clean. Like they don't even know. You can't do that by some person entering account numbers and amount of money, sending it to wherever. There's always a trail. It's called breadcrumbs. And if you can get rid of those, that's pretty slick. So I think what we've got here is to be very mindful that people will come at us and say, okay, I love the socialism because it gives opportunity to all these people to have health care, but it comes at a price. It always costs something when it's free. The cost is it greater by the people who actually make the opportunity, the wealth of this country? Is it detrimental to them? Yes, because they're just going to pass it on to the little people who are complaining they don't have anything. You've got to cut the taxes, cut red tape, let people thrive. A lot of others who have never been in business dictate policy. It doesn't work. It's like me trying to tell a doctor how to remove a kidney. I don't know how to get a butter knife and a spoon. I don't know. I'll leave it to the professionals. But people are out there right now trying to tell, oh, that's not how you replace a heart, or that's not how you fix a broken leg. How do you know? Well, I went on YouTube and looked at it once. No, let the professionals do the professional jobs. And I'm telling you right now, people like Trump who have been in business, who have gone through the ups and downs. Let's not overlook that. Yeah, his companies have filed bankruptcy. It happens. But the greatest test in the world is learning from the things of which you now know what not to do. So we're going to leave it at that. We're going to have a huge expansion on both of these topics this week. So the next two shows, we're really going to expand the socialism and the communism influence in America, who's pushing it, where it's at, how it's influencing government. That goes right into the private sector. And number two, we're really going to expand on this big bill because I'm just touching the surface. And we're going to break this thing down. Everybody needs to know what's in it because nobody seems to understand that there's good and there's, I don't want to say bad, but let's just say less good maybe because some of the bad may turn out not to be so bad. We don't know that yet. We've got to give it time. It's kind of like what Einstein said about relativity. It took 90 years to prove he was right. Michael Berry may have been a little early in the 2008 crash of the mortgage-backed security because he jumped in early 7, but he wasn't wrong. So with that, I appreciate everybody being here, and thanks again for our growth on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. We're killing it. We've increased our subscribers by more than I ever could have thought. Thank you so much. Looking forward to our next show, and we'll be back tomorrow.
Look at how the rare coin market has skyrocketed in the past 2 to 3 years, specifically proof gold, and how their performance has done after Christian Briggs, CEO of Hard Asset Management, put an immediate buy recommendation in late 2019 on United States proof gold. Specifically $20 St. Gaudens gold pieces, $20, $10, and $5 Liberty proof gold, and $10 and $5 Indian head proof gold. According to PCGS Price Guide, an 1878 $1 J1553 RB grade proof 65 plus was valued at $2,250 in October 2023, and today it is worth $190,000, an astronomical rise of 8,344%. On September 2021, a 190710 cent grade proof 68 was valued at $7,750 according to PCGS Price Guide. Today it is valued at $100,000, rising 614% in that span. Follow on X at BMC_HAM for all news and the latest developments.